Kayla around? Just want to find out if she has comms to Roger in the judges box, so Roger can get information to her about the course plans, the course times, and then also if we've sorted out the microphones for the interviews after the class.
Who's speaking?
Roger, he's the commentator there where I was yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So he's taken over from me today.
Okay. While you do the live record.
She can't. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, I can hear you fine. Talk again. Yes.
Why is it 67 blankets?
67 minutes.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
It's just not something obvious that makes me look
2019 South African Derby, presented by Kyalami Park Club. Live streaming proudly sponsored by Capital Stud.
The Bob Charter Arena at Kyalami Park Club is the venue for the 2019 South African Derby. This is the 54th edition of South Africa's most prestigious show jumping event. Well, it's a very, very good morning to all of you live streaming viewers out there, and welcome to Kyalami Equestrian Park. This live streaming broadcast brought to you by Capital Stud. A big thank you to them. Got this absolutely beautiful facility that we're broadcasting from, courtesy of Downings. That's us sitting in our little, what should we call it, our little teardrop, courtesy of Downings. Big thank you to them. Of course, it's a new look, new feel derby for 2019. In the past, we've had one title sponsor at the event. This year, we have many, and we're very, very happy, glad that we have them on board. Well, one of the sponsors that we're talking to this morning, of course, it's the Mini Derby that's up first, and the sponsor of the Mini Derby, a new sponsor on board, is the 67 Blankets for Mandela Day charity. And the lovely lady behind the charity and behind the sponsorship on my right-hand side is Carolyn Steyn. Very good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Aidan. I'm good. I'm so excited. I have to tell you, it is such an honor for 67 Blankets for Nelson Mandela Day to be here at the premier equestrian event of the year in South Africa. I mean, who would have thunk? Blankets and horses. Not me.
It's wonderful to have you here. Carolyn, before we get into the charity, let's just chat about you a little bit. You're a very busy lady these days. Of course, television, theatre background. What keeps
like you?
Well, we won't talk too much about that. What keeps you busy these days?
Gosh, you know, 67 Blankets for Nelson Mandela Day 5.5 years ago changed my life. So these days, these feet go into schools, into old age homes, orphanages, prisons. You know, I spent a lot of time in jail. So we've got inmates all around the country, stitch by stitch, making a difference, making blankets for communities on the outside whose lives have been affected by crime and poverty. So, and the schools, it's so amazing to have, going back to school, my school, JP High School for Girls, and all those girls in the corridors, in the classrooms, you know, crocheting away. It's very therapeutic, and also it's such a sense of coming together as well, community building. So we talk about knitting our lives together, knitting our nation together, knitting nations together. So the people creating the blankets are benefiting, and the people receiving warmth are benefiting. So I know I'm not talking about me. What else do you want to know about me? So I come from the theatre world, as you know. I do a show on Classic 102.7 every night. I love the arts. I love going to the theatre. It's my passion.
And you're now involved with the equestrian fraternity. So 67 Blankets for Mandela Day charity. What exactly, so you have the blankets, what happens to the blankets? Why 67 blankets? We've got a beautiful shot of the blankets, as you can see.
They're amazing. I mean, they're all individual works of art. I mean, the creativity that comes out with our Knitwits for Madiba. We are a big 67 Blankets family. So the challenge was 5.5 years ago on my husband's birthday, December 19th, shortly after the passing of our beloved Nelson Mandela. Zelda, his assistant, was at the lunch table at my husband's birthday, and I was boasting about my domestic abilities, of which I have none, and she said, make 67 blankets for Mandela Day. And I said, sure, no problem, but really it was light-hearted banter, in one ear, out the other. And then my sister Sharon arrived on Christmas Day with a bag of wool and a crochet hook, reminding me of this pledge. So the last time I crocheted was at school, 15 years ago, long time ago. And I started, and I realized very quickly I was not going to be able to make 67 blankets on my own. I don't have 67 friends, poor me. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, I put it on Facebook. Anybody out there that might be able to help me make a blanket, because I pledged 67. And the next morning when I woke up, the hashtags, that's when I learned about hashtags and the power of social media. Hashtag I'm in, hashtag 67 blankets, hashtag let's do it. And so blankets started coming in quite quickly. you know, and then we got woven into the script of Generations, the soap opera.
Yes.
And strangers, every time somebody was coming towards me, they were bearing blankets. And at one point, I started putting the blankets in our dining room, sort of on the floor, piling them up, and then the pile kind of moved down.
Soon you were overwhelmed by blankets.
It was amazing. Now, you know, fortunately, we have got a massive garage, and cars are not of enormous importance now. It's blankets.
Right.
You know, so I can comfortably say that after 5.5 years, we haven't distributed 67 blankets. We have distributed over 67,000 blankets, and that's in South Africa alone.
And primarily,
We've
who do
done
they
more.
go to? How do you pick who the blankets go to?
So on our website, www.67blankets.co.za, we've got a beneficiary request form. People fill it out. There's an orphanage, an old-aged home, informal settlement. They need 327 blankets. They do a little motivation. They email info@67blankets, and we really accommodate as many of the requests as we get, and we're doing quite a good job. So, and we personally go into communities. You know, we don't source out and, you know, get other people to hand over the blankets, because I need to see where they're going.
Exactly.
And we photograph as much as we can every blanket with the recipient. So the blanket over a young child in an orphanage gets photographed from behind, because we can't photograph the face. So people, our nitwits from Madiba, can see.
We love the name Nitwits.
I know,
by
I
the way.
love it. It's a very tight-knit community. So they can see where their blanket has gone to. And it's really such a beautiful, transparent initiative. There's no salary that gets paid. There's no exchange of money. We trade not in money, but in good wool.
Right. So if anybody wants to get involved as a nitwit, if they want to join the party, what do they have to do?
It is so easy. Facebook, we're very Facebook driven. 67 blankets, the number 67 blankets for Nelson Mandela Day. And if you're in South Africa, SA, because we're in countries all around the world. It's amazing. It's like snowballed. One idea, a simple idea, a ball of wool, has snowballed into what people are calling a movement for good, a movement for change in our world, where stitch by stitch, we're keeping Madiba's legacy alive.
Well, we're here at the South African Derby for 2019. The riders are currently walking the course for the Mini Derby, now known as the 67 Blankets for Mandela Day
High five.
Mini Derby. We hope that the sponsorship continues. You're not only involved in the class, later on there'll be an initiative where you're involved with the Highveld Horse Care Unit, where small blanket squares are being made available for purchase for 100 Rand, and paragliders or parachuters, skydivers will come in and land on a blanket. If that blanket has your name on it, costs you 100 Rand, you stand the chance to win a Canon 90D camera with 30,000 Rand, and that's in association with Highveld Horse Care and your charity, and all of that money going to the Highveld Horse Care. So big thank you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I hope it's a relationship that goes on forever.
So the Mini Derby is coming up shortly. Carolyn, we're going to say goodbye to you for the meantime, but we'll see you a little bit later for the prize giving. Of course, many sponsors available have come to the party here at the 2019 South African Derby, and we're going to go to a billboard and show you just who those very special sponsors are. Well, welcome back to our commentary live stream broadcast brought to you by Capital Stud. A big thank you to Capital Stud. And I'm very happy that Gail Foxcroft is with me on my left-hand side. Good morning, Gail.
Good morning, Aidan. I'm also very happy to be here. I would be happier if I were riding, but it's still great to be here at the Derby.
let's touch on the reason why you're not riding. Why is that?
Perhaps let's not. Accident again.
Does this come back to the accident that you had at another stable yard when you decided to dismount with your right leg over the front of the horse and neglected to take your left leg out the stirrup and face
I would never
planted?
do that. I would never, ever do that.
I've got on good authority.
No, it wasn't that kind of accident. Yeah, I just played like Superman without the cape, and I ripped everything off my rotator cuff, so I had an op. But yeah, we'll be ready next year.
Sorry about that, Gail, but you know, your loss is our gain. We're very, very happy to have you here. So, mini Derby time, sponsored by 67 Blankets for Mandela. Let's take a look at the lineup. Let's take a look at the horses and riders that will take part in this class. Number 1 is Shannon Smith, Mark White Nissan's contest. They go first. Of course, the class in order of qualification. So, the lowest qualified horses will go first. Lauren Pretorius goes at number 2, Capital Calleonid. Yanni Kleinans, Equus Callao Conquito. Equus feeds one of our sponsors here at Derby 2019. Great to have them on board. Nicholas Riley, she goes at number 4, Sunny Park Stables, Eagles Laser. At number 5, Desiree Pinar and the lovely Lucado. Peter Morrison, MCSA Martin Collins, South Africa. One of our sponsors as well in the Big Derby. They sponsor the style and numerology, his wonderful stallion. They go at number 6. At 7, Tamara Rueda, AAN Equine La Adorado, FG. Those are the first 7. It's a 26-horse field. At number 8, George Cutlass, young George Cutlass, riding out of the stable of Ronnie Healy. I think this would be his first outing in the Mini Derby. NCT's career fight, formerly the ride of Ashley Hausberger. Now under George. David Wilkin with Escapade, the third. He goes at number 9. Stacey Weston, she's in good form. At number 10, Western Ferry Sagratoga Maxine. Tegan Brains has been a winner here this week. At number 11, Capital Cameroon. Oscar Ngube, he rides at Nelby von Het Hayfeldsy at 12. At 13, it's the veteran Barry Taylor, Nissan Costa G. At 14, Carolyn Chelchinsky. Her first outing in the Mini. Midgard Zingara, wonderful, honest horse. We go to number 15, Tracy Carney, Lacano Nikita. Great to see Tracy in this lineup. Heather Mostert from KZN, Summer Bridge Cruise. Rainer Korber, he goes on back on track, Quintino forward, 17. Stacey Lee Weston, Western Ferries, Frischgewacht, Billabong. 19 is Sandy Manass on Carinius. 20 is Nicholas I'm Riley, Reach for Gold. Ronnie Lawrence brings in Optimus at 21. At 22, Arnold Buerte. He had a good day yesterday. Carmes, Nobstad, Neuland, Nightlife. Grant Langley, another Italian. Forsyth Bankston at 23. Tinus Whissel, he rode the Big Derby last year. 24, he brings in Schweike Begina. Barry Taylor's second ride at 25 is Companero Son for Quentin Janssen. And Ivan van der Sade is the top qualifier. He loves the Derbies. Ivan van der Sade, he's been in blistering form throughout the week. He rides Rivervale's Best Wishes. He goes last. He'll sit in pole position. Gail, you have walked the course for us.
I have, indeed. And I think, Anna's done a beautiful job. The place looks stunning. It's a strong course. It's a really strong course. You know, you're doing the Mini Derby here. Starting straight away with number 1, a big Oxa, which is normally the last jump in the Big Derby. I think it's going to be a fantastic competition.
Apparently, Anna did have to change the course yesterday in the Micro Derby sponsored by Vitport. We saw quite a few horses eliminated at the small bank, and the rider said, "Oh, we don't like that too much, Anna. Please, can you change?" So there was a change that happened last night, and the riders will be going actually down the big bank, but down the side. So that's a change. Did you walk the bank?
I did. It's really just a little slope that you canter down and pop off the edge. So that's a bit sad.
Today,
no,
Gail,
exactly.
you know, remember
exactly.
the big derbies, the Ananda derbies with a 90-degree vertical bank. Anyway, we go to number 1, Shannon Smith. Shannon riding out of the Farnham stable, super talented jockey. What do you make of this rider and this horse combination, Gail?
Yeah, she's an outstanding rider, and I think she won the Mini Derby a couple of years ago on that wonderful mare of hers. I can't remember her name, but brilliant round a couple of years ago. And this is a lovely horse. This horse has been around a bit.
Was it Katina, perhaps? Perhaps not. We'll rack our memories. We'll get our researchers to go look it up.
Exactly.
Anyway, we're on track now with the first horse and rider. safely over the rustics at number 1. What did you walk between 1 and 2?
I can't be sure.
We'll have a count. So safely over number 2. Easily up the steps. Left-handed turn, and of course it's a new look, new feel derby this year. Whole bunch of sponsors coming to the party. Of course, a couple of viewers out there will be going, what's with the big boards? Well, the way it works is, unfortunately, we lost our big sponsor earlier on in the year, around about May, and went to Plan B, looked for sponsors to sponsor individual jumps. Lots were forthcoming, and this is the way it's working this year. So RioNet sponsoring the water jump this year. We'll go through the sponsors throughout the course of the day. This is looking like a good round so far.
It looks like an outstanding round. So maybe it's not what I thought it was, but she's just such a good rider, and this is a lovely horse. So Shannon's possibly making it look a lot easier than it is.
When you say she's a good rider, the essence of Shannon's riding, balance and rhythm. She's just so smooth, rhythmical. You never see her move in the saddle. She gives her horses every chance, doesn't rush them.
Absolutely. She's beautiful to watch, and she's a quiet rider, but a really positive and strong rider. She gives the horse every chance.
So far clear all the way.
My only thing is she looks a little quiet. I'm not sure about time. I don't know how difficult the time is.
Have a look at the time allowed is 114 seconds, so moving on to 99, 100. She's got 14 seconds to get home.
Could be close.
Safely through the back on track dike. And Ellerina back on track, coming to the party as the sponsors of the dike. And what a way to start. 117.
One time fault.
One for time. Of course, this track set up by Anne-Marie Esslinger. They'll be sitting in the judges' box now. They'll have a look at the time. They've got 3 riders to judge whether the time is tight. Shannon possibly looked a little bit slow.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was very close. I mean, she just, can't be sure what they're going to do. But I mean, it was the most beautiful round to watch.
So like I say, the judges as well as the course designer have 3 horses, 3 faultless rounds to look at to judge whether the time is accurate or whether they need to lengthen. So they'll have the eye on the clock now. They will be able to amend the time after 3 horses should they deem that the time is a little bit tight. Let's watch number 2, Lauren Pretorius. It's Capital Calleonid in the 67 blankets for Mandela Day Mini Derby.
I think this is possibly Lauren's first time in the Mini Derby.
Definitely
on this horse, but
Definitely.
I mean, altogether, I think
this horse is actually pretty new to the 140s. He's been campaigning in the 130s and a few 135s, and only recently gone up into the 140s. And for me, has actually got better. The bigger the jumps get, the better the horse goes.
Yeah, he has, and I think she's really getting a handle on him now. He's a really big horse, and she's a small girl, and he takes a bit of riding, and I think she's really come together with him now.
Certainly gives the fences a lot of air. I think he's only an 8 or 9-year-old now, to be honest.
Yeah, he is quite young. Yeah, that is quite. If you a little forward of the water, that is quite short in there.
So just the 4 penalties at the moment. She did look like she hunted slightly to that, but of course difficult getting them back after the water. On the 12. Getting to a nice flow now.
Yeah, that's quite a sort of sharp turn left from the big oxer to the dike, but it seems to be riding very nicely.
What's your record in the Mini Derby? I know 3 of the big derbies. Lawrence finishes on 17, so one for time as well.
I think I've been second twice.
Mini Derby doesn't count when you've won 3 of the big ones.
No,
who cares?
Mini Derby always counts.
Next to go, number 4, Equus Calaho Conquito. Yanni Kleinans. Yanni having a ride in the Big Derby today as well.
This is definitely this horse's first time in the Mini Derby.
And there is coach Dominic Alexander.
I think, is he on the kiss and cry stand there?
He's on the kiss and cry. Let's see if it's a kiss or a cry after the round.
Exactly.
So far the first to go, Mark White Nissen's Contest and Shannon Clear. Capital Kellyanne and Lauren finish on 17. Next to go, coming to jump number 1. We start with the Rustic Oxer. Of course, in the Big Derby, we finish with the Rustic Oxer. 8 strides up to the steps. Oh, looked like he nearly went the wrong way. Gets it right. I think somebody shouted to him from the crowd. Left. Probably Tanya or Dominic.
I think Yanni's been going over in his head over and over the Big Derby, and you always turn right after the step, so he was probably a little confused.
Oh, what a pity.
Have they had the water a couple of times this show?
They've had it at least once.
Okay.
But the boxes in front with the solid red.
Oh, okay.
So we changed to the rear net boxes and the short poles. So that's something that they certainly haven't seen.
I think I prefer the white and the clear poles, because to me the horses need to see what they're doing. I don't think you can ever fool horses about what they're going to jump. And to me, the more they see it, the easier it is.
Currently sitting on 8. Easy over the road crossing.
The horses are looking at those blankets. Did you see that?
I was a little worried about that, but
I saw Kellyanne had a good look at the blankets as he went past.
they'll all be blanketed next season in 67 blankets for Mandela Day. Make sure they get used to them.
It's a really good round of Yanni's. Unfortunate that. Look at the water.
So exceeds the time allowed.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot over because of the start. Very good round.
Comes through the finish on 12 penalties in 130 seconds. Minded that the time allowed 114.
So it looks like I could be completely wrong about how difficult this course is.
Well, the one clear so far, Contest. Mark White Nissen, of course, Mark White Nissen, another one of our big sponsors, takes up the road crossing. Great to have Mark White aboard, always supportive of equestrian sports. And in fact, we'll be chatting to him a little bit later here in studio. Next to go, number 5, Sunny Park Stables Eagles Laser. Nicola Syme Riley, she's a past winner of the Big Derby 2 years ago, 2017, on the wonderful El Paso, and she brings in here Laser, big striding horse.
She's also a beautiful rider to watch. Always.
Puts in 9 to the second and has that down.
I think this horse is also very new to the 140s, isn't
Yeah,
he?
he
So
is.
it's quite a step up for him here. It looks like she's having to ride him quite hard.
He's a lot of horse to hold together, I'd imagine. A big, imposing type of a horse. But she is just the most fantastic jockey.
Yeah, she is. She's giving him a good round.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just a little mistake at the stone wall at number 2 thus far. Coming into the St Andrews Cross, this year sponsored by Pure Sand. 7 strides to the road crossing.
I'm afraid I do have to say that's a little disappointing, that bank. It's sort of a little nothing.
I say nothing.
And I just think it's so nice for the horses to do the proper, that second bank that we have here. It's such a good bank. So I'm not sure why.
6 strides to the last. Just the 4 penalties and really a nothing fence. She
Yeah, very good round.
looks like if she just let him bowl on a little bit, she looked like she just possibly held on to him a bit coming to number 2, and he got a little bit close, knocked it off. It could so easily have been a clear.
Yeah, it looks like he lands and gets a little long and strong, and then when she brings him back, he doesn't come back straight away.
So just the 4. Let's move on now to Desiree Pinot. Licado, number 6, another one relatively new to the 140s. This horse was bought on the Callahoo sale a few years ago. Desiree has done a lovely job with him, produced him all the way up the grades under the expert tutelage of Mandy Johnson, who we saw in picture a moment or two ago.
He's a beautiful horse and got such a lovely temperament. Really genuine horse. And he's by Lissabon. Didn't Lissabon win the Derby once? No?
No.
Okay. Well,
Been in a few derbies.
Yeah.
Beautiful canter, light in front. Desiree and Mandy came to us a few times just to practice the stars and the walls, and the horse didn't blink, didn't look at a thing.
no,
So
he's a
let's
lovely
hope
horse.
he goes well. For a second, also was thinking about going right there.
Yes. I think it's something that
Sure, Mandy
that's-
reminded her of a left turn.
I think you're so, whether you've ridden in the big derby or not, you're so used to what the course is that I think it's second nature to just turn right after the steps.
A little bit tight to that, got away with it,
Yeah.
came up in front nicely. Desiree riding really, really positively. She was a little bit worried about the water, gets away with that, no problems. It's in a super rhythm, nice and forward, which is really the way you want to ride the derbies.
Yeah.
Another worry of hers out the way, that's looking really good.
Oh.
Commentator's curse.
Yeah.
Looks like he possibly just ducked to the right there coming into that.
Yeah, he moved a little to the side, and she looked like she just panicked a little as he did and just overrode it very slightly.
Comes up to the top bet bank. No hesitation whatsoever. Just on the 4. Easily over the panels. Gives that a little tap, gets away with it. 107 seconds, 7 seconds to get home.
Lovely round.
Mandy's super happy. Lucia as well from the Mandy Johnson stables in Sun Valley, part of the team. So 1 for time, was it? 4 for jumping, 1 for time, total of 5 penalties for Licado. Lovely ride there from Desiree Pinot. She'll be absolutely elated.
So they've obviously decided not to change the time, and I must say the time does look, it looks fine. I mean, the ones that have had a time fault did look like they were a little
Which
quiet.
is strange, because for my money, Contest and Shannon looked in a gentle rhythm, came home without a time penalty, so that she must have kept
No,
it
she
pretty,
did have a time penalty.
pretty tight. Is she not clear?
No.
My bad.
I'm sure she had a time fault. I saw she had a time fault when. I just thought it was fractionally too gentle.
Peter Morrison, Martin Collins, South Africa, Rivendell Numerology.
It's a lovely stallion. He's by Numero Uno, and there are so many brilliant Numero Uno horses. In fact, Neuland Nightlife is also a Numero Uno, and they're very good horses. It's a stallion that's really taking over. I think the last horse Peter jumped in the mini derby was that big grey of his. Would be nice if I had a memory. A very difficult big grey he had years ago, a big grey warm blood.
Obviously had a few rides around the Big Derby as well.
Oh, he's on the bay.
It'll come to me, Gail.
Between the two of us, can't remember much.
It's the one that Matthew's
Yes,
been riding.
exactly.
So the second time that end of the Mark White Nissan road crossing goes down.
That's what you call a real lazy pole. It looked like it shouldn't have been.
Do they come over the first element and suddenly see that does it worry them that they're jumping onto a different level ever?
I don't think it ever does. They jump beautifully. It's actually a beautiful jump to jump the table. They jump it so well. But sometimes I think you can tend to ride it a little strong in, thinking that they're going to back off, and they don't.
You remember the days of Ananda with that there was a ditch there. This one not so, so perhaps that sticks in your memory and you ride a little bit stronger if you've been over that one. You don't want to land in the ditch on the other side.
That was a very different kettle of fish. That was always quite scary to ride. Good round.
Good effort from Peter. Lands up on 6 penalties. So that's the first 7 through the start in the 67 blankets for Nelson Mandela Day Mini Derby. First of the 2 championship classes that'll happen on this beautiful Sunday here at Kyalami Equestrian Park. So we build up to the big one that comes up later. And of course the entire day of the Slime Stream broadcast brought to you by Capital Stud. Next to go, AAN Equine La Adorado. Tamara Rueda is the rider. Took advantage to show La Adorado the water. Obviously a little bit worried about that one. Opens up beautifully behind over jump number 1.
She's been having some really good shows in the last little while on her grey.
Qantas.
Exactly. In the world, all the World Cup qualifiers, I think she did really well in Polokwane. It's a good rider.
Comes from an equestrian background, a racing background. In fact, her grandmother, Shirley Pfeiffer, was the famous racehorse breeder and owner of Flaming Rock, who won the July many years ago, 1992.
Exactly.
Had the Arkansas stud, and Tam keeping it in the family, turning her towards sport horses rather than racing, her attention.
Exactly, and her mom Suzanne also used to ride. I think all these distances are a little steady as well, so maybe that's why everyone's being a bit quiet.
Well, so far it's a really neat round.
Yeah, also looking quiet. To me, I think the riders need to be seeing that, like from this White Oxford to the bank, you need to actually move there.
Yeah.
And because you're quiet in the distances.
Got away with that. Safely over that, living a little bit dangerously towards the tail end of this field, but getting away with... Oh, I spoke too soon. I think
You're getting quite good at that.
Yeah, I should just keep quiet.
Good round.
Well, that
though.
was a pity. Just the one down and the one-time penalty to add. Ian disappointed. There's Chad. Chad Cunningham and Ian. So close to home, clear, and then just the C element of the dike coming down there for Adorado and Tam.
Was it not A?
George Cutlass next to go, rides out of the stable of Ronnie Healy. This formerly the ride of Ronnie's wife Ashley. Game campaigner, NCT's career fight. I don't think that there they are, Ashley and Ronnie. So this would be George's first ride around a mini derby. He recently went up into the 150s on the source in Polokwane, jumped his first 150.
Jumped really well too.
Yeah, really good.
This horse tends to grab the bit and run a little. I think that makes him fairly difficult in that he runs himself quite deep, but he seems to get a really good tune out of him.
Has been around a big derby, if I'm not mistaken, with
I think so, with Ashley, yeah. And he did some good World Cups with her too. I think he was going for the one less and then suddenly had a mind change.
Horse went high, just couldn't travel, didn't get over the back bar. Also slightly picked on landing. 4 penalties thus far. Oh. Missed into that one.
Quite difficult when the horse takes the bit and runs, because then you've got to suddenly make a different plan.
Yeah.
And I think it's just getting on top of him at the
Constantly having
moment.
to try and improvise.
Yeah.
And
No, he's just
and that, I'm afraid, is that for young George. And career fights. Talk to me about the style. Sucks you in. What is the way to ride that at the St Andrews Cross? Sorry.
Yeah, it does. You know, the horses jump huge over it. They do. They give it feet when they jump it, and you either tend to want to take away too much or suddenly see a long one. The horses generally actually jump it really well, but it's about the rider sitting quiet and not panicking.
Would you want to be a little bit off and support the front end? And
Yes, I think that's what I think. You want to be a little off. Obviously, perfect would be best, but you really don't want to get too deep, because I think then it just overwhelms the horses.
veteran of show jumping, David Wilkin, Escapade. Of course, David and Anne-Marie Esslinger run the Burlington stables up the top end of Sun Valley, Kyalami area, and sponsors this year of the Stone Wall in the Derby, jump number 1.
David, I'm not sure. David used to own that brilliant horse that Anne Lee eventually bought, Say Hello. And I'm not sure if David ever rode a Derby on Say Hello. I know he wanted to. And I think the other... Oh, you can see he's done the Derby before. He also wanted to turn right.
That's becoming a common trend in this mini
Yeah.
Derby.
He
You
rode-
just heard the crowds go, David!
I think so. He rode a Bay Mare a couple of years ago, really well round the Derby. A beautiful round. I think it belonged to Stephen Flax.
Oh. Talk us through the mistake there, Gail.